Hi, everyone. So, I'm about 3 months into my move to London for grad school, and I'm here to give you some insight I've gained now 3 months into the journey. So, here are some things that I don't think they tell you when planning an international move to London as a grad student. So, I wrote some things down because I was like, I don't know if I have that much to say. And as I wrote some bullet points down, I realized I actually do have a lot to say. I've been posting and sharing some things on TikTok, and answering like some more basic level questions, but this will be a longer video just talking about the intricacies and like more specific advice for people that are moving here. And it's going to be very centered on going back to grad school as well. And more specifically, there's going to be some pointers for anyone that's going back into a fine art or into any sort of art program here in London. As I have spoken to other people, I've realized that my experience is not unique. In fact, I met someone from North America, and she was just like, anytime I see an art student in London, I'm just like, hey, how are you doing? Like, she just automatically checks in, assuming that they're navigating a lot. And that has been the case. So, for context, I'm like 8 years removed from undergrad. So, I knew going back to school, it would come with its challenges. And I was highly active and a part of a lot of activist movements in my latter years of undergrad. So, I have a lot of critiques of the institution. It took a lot for me to decide that this was what I needed, because it comes with a lot of good things, but it also comes with a lot of things that sometimes feel not worth it. In fact, I had the idea during these past few months to just start writing the ways in which going back to art school or academia in general may not be worth it for you. And again, this isn't to dissuade people. I do think that I understand more like why my friends in grad school were like, are you sure you need to go back to grad school? Because it's a lot. It's taxing. It's more intense than undergrad in a lot of ways, actually. And I think the best thing you can do is be informed. So, like, anytime I was in a space where I wanted to understand, who am I studying with? Like, can someone give me insight on this professor? Can someone give me insight on this program? Can someone give me insight on this community's relationship to this school? Like, you need that context. At least I do, in order to like know a space and feel aware so that I can know how I want to benefit. There's nothing worse to me than walking into a program and being blind to the critiques and the things that have happened, and then you fall into the same pattern that people the year before fell into. And so schools really thrive on people leaving, and so people don't have enough time to like share what they've learned with the people that are coming behind them. And it's like very cyclical, where people can face the same things over and over. And so this is very grad school specific, at least these pointers are, but you do have to be very sure what you want to get out of the program. And that is what's sustaining me, because the program is way more challenging to navigate than I actually thought. And I already expected it to be challenging. So I think, like, structurally, communication wise, you're just in another culture. And so, in the way that we're used to certain things, maybe in America, from, you know, my example, um, where you're getting your schedule way ahead of time, where there's things that's lined out for the entire year. That's not necessarily how things operate here. And because schools can be going through a lot of changes, you may be walking into like something kind of tumultuous. And so, anyways, as much on the ground insight as you can get is helpful. And that's something that I think you just can't fully prepare for until you're here. Sort your accommodations. I went through a whole issue with accommodations because I did student housing, thinking it would be easier, but it wasn't. and it was super difficult to get out of the contract. I essentially couldn't. I had to find someone to replace me in order to be alleviated from a year-long financial responsibility. There was very little understanding on their part. I want to write about that whole experience because I feel like it was absolutely one of the worst things to navigate moving into a new city, is to feel unsettled and not comfortable where you're living. But I became an expert at spare room. I posted my accommodation on different Facebook groups, and someone reached out to me, thankfully, and it took a little while. But yeah, it took quite a bit of a while. It took 3 months. And so I do think like my mental health was struggling during that time because I just didn't feel rested. I wasn't sleeping through the night pretty much every night because it's like I'm in a shoebox and this isn't my home, so it's like you have to feel comfortable in the place that you're staying in as much as you can control that. Finances permitting, of course, but it's just like you need to feel comfortable because everything else is new. And so if you don't like the place that you live, you're going to keep leaving or wanting to be out, and you're never going to establish routines for yourself or feel settled and focused. So that's a big one. You'll have to advocate for yourself a lot. People see you as an international person, and so they're like either disgruntled by you or they may take advantage of you. And this is like institutional spaces, so interfacing with anyone that has like a decision-making power. So you have to be very comfortable with advocating for yourself, knowing when you're feeling uncomfortable, and not just succumbing to like, let me be nice because I'm new here. Like a week in, I already had to be an advocate for myself, and like pretty strongly and firmly. So you just have to be ready to do that. Like you got to come in swinging a little bit because you are seen as a person that is in a more vulnerable spot, and so you have to take back whatever control and power that you have in certain situations. I also chose to stop interfacing with people once it got too much for me and I was sharing emotions and they weren't taking it into consideration. So I bypassed them and I went to other people to communicate versus interfacing with the people that were not interested in having my best interest at heart. And so that is a part of it as well. Again, these are things that they don't tell you, so this is going to sound real rough or heavy, and it is, which is why you got to know this is what you want to do. That's what I'm saying. It can't just be like, oh, London is so cute, like I can just go and like, frolic. And sure, some people may be able to do that, but that's gonna wear out real quick. You understand? It's like any other city. It's a major city, so like you're gonna face a lot of the things that anyone in a major city would come across. They would say like, oh, you can spend like 30-40 pounds on groceries for a week, and I'm like, I don't think that's true. Like, especially if you're trying to eat more consciously, even if you're not, to be honest. But yeah, I don't think that's realistic. The cost of living is quite high, and to tie into that, be aware of like how you're gonna get around. The transit system is affordable in some ways, but if you're commuting like a £3.75 ride to somewhere, then you're also commuting that back. And so you're basically in a position where you're paying like almost £9 a day for commuting if you have to take like multiple trains, or so that adds up, within 10 days that's £90. And so you just need to be mindful of that. I think you should try to live in a area that you can have the option to walk somewhere if you want, or like take a bus, which is half the price of the train. So I think being aware of that is really important. There is a student Oyster card, which is about like 110 or something pounds a month. But what I did is what a lot of locals suggested, which is to get a rail pass. So you get a 30% discount on any train ticket that you're buying, even if you're commuting outside of London, which is why I chose to do it, because I have family outside of London. So I get 30% off on any train ticket, National Rail, And then I applied that National Rail Pass to my Oyster. You do have to do it in person at their like ticketing office or at like a kiosk, but so then in off-peak hours I get 30% off any train ride, which again, like, it is gonna add up. Like, your commuting is gonna add up. And so you can do the student Oyster, but I just found that for me the value was better in the Rail Pass. The other thing is you need a job, probably, unless you have saved up a lot or you're committed to going to school through just loans. You need a job. I can't speak to any professional tips because I had classes conflicting with a lot of the like international job meetings that they had earlier on in the year. And so I was like, oh, it'll be fine. I'll like find something remote. I'll do something online. But it is quite tricky. I'm 3 months in and like I'm hoping to secure a job within the next 2 weeks, but I was trying to make other little things work, or like, but you do need to think about that. As a student, some people have the luxury of not thinking about school and may be able to afford it in other ways through grants or scholarships, but as an international student, you're paying more and your access to scholarships is way less. So a lot of the plans I had for how to fund myself didn't quite work out, even though I had a spreadsheet and a list of all these different grants and scholarships that I was able to like scour the internet for, because again, art school, international student, those two things don't make for a lot of accessible grants and scholarships. So just be mindful of that. Like, you do have to think about that in your planning portion as much as possible. I think I kind of neglected it because I felt so overwhelmed by everything else. And so, yeah, give yourself room to think about that and try to set things up ahead of time if you can. The last thing I'll talk about is feelings of imposter syndrome or comparison. I think for me specifically, arriving into a fine art program after really not working in a fine art space as an artist for the past 8 years was a bit of a learning curve. I think also I'm not like a studio-based artist, and so I'm not used to like what it means to have a studio space, because everyone's kind of assigned a studio space and people start working and setting up their canvas and all these things. And so though the people in the program are absolutely lovely, that is a beautiful bonus because it really could have been otherwise. But everyone is so supportive and really kind, and but I do think like you're gonna, especially if you've been out of this space for a while, you're gonna come across that feeling more than likely of like, okay, I made it here, now I actually have to do the thing that I think was worth all of this sacrifice. So there can be a lot of like subconscious pressure on what you're doing and what you're making. And I felt that. I'm still going through that, and I think there's a lot of like fear that you're trying to overcome, and like you're trying to like be committed to the process of doing as much as you can so that if things don't work, you can just move past it. But I do think like, and everyone goes through that in their different ways, but we're constantly, critiquing each other's works. We're in crit classes and like constantly thinking about what you're making, and you're in a studio where everyone has the capacity to work. And so it is an environment that's fueled a little bit by competition, but I think that can be healthy if it doesn't fall into comparison. And so I think that is a space that, and I think that'll happen in anything. It doesn't even have to be art school. I think it can happen in any sort of program, that there is this sense of when you're diving into something more, whether it's through an MA or a PhD or any sort of postgraduate program, there's going to be that sense of like needing to resist comparison or imposter syndrome and questioning, your value in that space. And so thankfully, I feel like I've been attentive to that, and I've been trying to be very aware of that, and so not falling into those traps and just being able to do. I get scared sometimes, like, even planning for a critique that I have coming up in a few weeks. I'm like, I can feel myself trying to hold back, but I have to just put it all out, because that's the point of being here, and that's the point of doing it. You have to do it scared sometimes. And so it wouldn't be worth it for me to have made all that sacrifice just to fall back into a space of playing it safe. And so, yeah, now that you're here, be here, and commit to that process, and don't try to save face, and just go for things and try things, and yeah, be wise about it. But yeah, that's kind of the space I'm in. So yeah, what else can I say? London is really cool. Right now, I'm on the tightest budget of my life as I try to figure out this work stuff and pay this new rent and all this stuff. So I'm just kind of like enjoying my room and cooking at home and trying to save and not go out. And so it's been like a quiet and peaceful time. I spent some time with family, which is like a really big perk. If you can go somewhere where you have community, like if you're trying to plan an international move, having some community on the ground, whether that's family or people that you meet or you connect with ahead of time. This is something I said on TikTok as well, but there's a plethora of like WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and people that are creatives that you may already know. Like, take inventory of that. There were people that I met through social media that were just, other creatives in London that I met with before I ever actually moved here. And so, yeah, create those communities, because those communities help you start to form routine and get you excited to do things outside of yourself. And so I'd say, like, in conclusion, the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, though I'm in this program, is actually connecting to the spaces outside of this program and what makes London London. I was very drawn to the art scene of London because of the diasporic element of the Black community, and specifically the Jamaican migrants, and what that could do for the work that I'm trying to make. And so I didn't apply to any program in the States. I only applied to programs in London. And so it's been a big dream of mine. Family, friends know that I tried to do this move 8 years ago right out of undergrad, and it just didn't work out. And so to be here and to live in this right now is really special. And I think for some people, like, back to student accommodation, for some people, if you're in transit mode, like you're just here to do something and leave, maybe you're fine with like a space that doesn't quite feel like yours and is small and is just convenient and you can just go in and out. But I think for me, I'm building a life here, and I want, even if it's 2 years, even if it's 4 years, even if it's 10 years, I'm like, I want to feel at home here for whatever time I have here. And that feels really integral to my experience. And so, yeah, pick your timing wisely, pick your place wisely, even if it's not London, and go for it and believe in it and see yourself in it. I took a few trips before I made the move to see myself here, and yeah, I think like it's a big decision, but I wouldn't have made a different decision now living in it. It was like absolutely necessary. So yeah, you just got to get over the hump and the hardship a little bit of what it means to actually make this kind of a jump. But I think when you're convinced about it, once you do and you settle into it a little bit and things calm down, you'll feel affirmed. So that's all. Oh, should I show my room a little bit? This is the couch. I have not pulled out this equipment. You see, I have not pulled out this camera bag for 3 months. This camera and that setup has been sitting in that bag. I have not touched it. I have not shot any video work until the break. So like almost 3 months, pretty much. I was very knee deep into exploring a lot of other mediums, which is another thing that's like really cool about being in a program, is that you can do that. And the time and the space that you're dedicating to something for sure opens up your mind to different possibilities and things that you weren't thinking about or considering before. Anyways, that's my little desk. That is my little kitchenette. You see? Yeah. And there's a toilet in there. It's my little bed. And this is why am I doing this like I don't know? This is gonna be a little record setup. So I'm gonna get a metal table, I think, and put it sort of like, yeah, I think it'll be like the length of the heater, radiator, whatever. No, that's not a radiator, whatever. This is a lamp that I think I might replace that one with and put over here. The little metal one. This is actually from the other room that's across from me. But yeah, this is her. Very cute. I have bought all of these records besides 2 since I've been here. This is the most expensive one because it's Michael Kiwanuka and it's new. But other than that, Dennis Brown, Al Green, Sam Cooke, Junior Tucker, If You Know, You Know. And there's actually a song on here with Stitchy. That is a deep cut for anyone that was in the reggae gospel space in the early 2000s. Marvin Gaye, Anita Baker, Nat King Cole, 3 Pounds. Anyways, you get it. That is an incredible record collection. And I promise you, the most expensive record was, besides the Michael Kiwanuka one, because again, that was a new record. The most expensive record was probably 5 pounds. No lie. I legit bought, Tina Turner, Leah. Actually, this one was probably the most expensive. I think it was 8 pounds. Gladys Knight and the Pips. Like, what? And fun fact, I was in a secondhand store, and when I picked this up, before I cashed out, it actually started playing on the radio. A song that was on the record. Midnight Train to Georgia. These are records that I brought. One of my favorite records of all time. Stevie Wonder, The Secret Life of Plants. This is another random record that I bought, but it's a boys choir from Atlanta, and I listened to it and it sounds really cool. And my second record that I brought was, of course, Solange herself. Yeah, anyways, this is getting long, but this is my new life in London. Pray for me.